All right, everyone, the uprising against neocon, neolib politics continues, and at the forefront of that is the concept of a Patriot Party, an America First-ism that congeals into an actual mainline political movement as opposed to being just a proportion of the current political landscape. And I've come to the conclusion that it's probably the best thing for the United States. It's probably for the best that the GOP in its current form dies. Is replaced then by, a movement that actually embraces the values the GOP has pretended to fight for the last 50 years. It pretended to fight for the working and middle class, average workers, business, the ability of capitalism, conservatism in some cases in the moral sense. I digress from particularly liking that. Free speech, constitutional, strict constructionism, free trade, things of that nature, but also fair trade in the sense of not getting abused by other countries, and largely was less interventionist initially. The GOP that did embrace those values, like the era of Eisenhower or something, has been pissed away in favor of corporate cronyism. Now, corporate cronyism, a lot of people conflate that with capitalism and say, well, we're in end-stage capitalism, it's oligarchy. No, it's not end-stage capitalism. The vertical monopolies creating that system inevitably require a strong state to exist. In the absence of a strong state, they cannot form. When we see Silicon Valley, which is, basically worse than the Gilded Age could ever be, and it's only one proportion of the economy that we're talking about, just human communication in the technological sense, those monopolies are insured by the government that is being paid off by the monopolies. One hand washes the other. The situation gets worse and worse, and they form trusts. They're already illegal. They're facing antitrust legislation for a reason. A Patriot Party that represents the average person does not delve into deep id poll, except for American identitarianism and in the sense of the civic structure, I think is a good idea. And I realize that it's absorbed a lot of ethno-nat tendencies. It's also absorbed some libertarian tendencies, though. I'm failing to see how that, imperfect as though it is, there's no perfect political system other than me being the dictator of the world, and by the way, everyone agrees with that in secret, but, they don't like to talk about how they wish that they could rule the world, but everyone basically thinks that they should. Some people would do a better job than others. I think most of the politicians would do the worst job. When I compare that to what neoliberalism has given us, not just in the US, but anywhere in the world, it's a clear-cut difference. It's night and day. Neoliberalism has given us proxy wars and pissed away all of our capital, ruined our currency, fails at diplomacy repeatedly, alienates ally and hostile state alike, and causes all sorts of struggles and pogroms, is censorious, has lost basically all regard for the Constitution, has basically lost all regard for the very concept of Americanism. It wants to fundamentally transform away from the United States government is meant to represent the people, government of the people, by the people, for the people. Essentially, they want to score that out of existence in favor of our government is just one of many. They form basically an oligarchic globalistic council, and they work with corporations directly, and everyone else, basically, you're expected to just follow whatever they fucking say. The problem is that in such a globalized structure, the U.S., if it sees itself as just a co-equal state of states, instead of exceptional, instead of worthy of its own total sovereignty, if it takes like a UK pre-Brexit approach, because it is only one nation with one vote at the table, it can't possibly hope to maintain the traditional constitutional structure that made all of the wealth that we have. The United States became exceptional in terms of becoming the world superpower, the trade power, the economic power, the main diplomatic muscle of the West. All of that happened because of liberty. All of that happened because for the first 200 years almost of our existence, by and large, you could unbridle people's own creative talent. They were not burdened by massive taxes and huge regulations and a bunch of moralism and social sense, yes, but by and large it was a free society. So the inventor that's born in the French Empire might have to get leave from the king and the local lord and a bunch of bureaucrats to have a little laboratory to advance medicine and develop, chemotherapy or something. The U.S. scientists didn't have that problem. A private investor might say, well, that seems like an eccentric but cool idea. Yeah, here's $100, because that would have been a lot, back in the day. And then potentially medicine is vastly improved. The United States, by and large, unbridled things. And another part of it, and this is another thing that we have to understand, the United States is not the same as it was Homestead Act era. Back then, the other part that allowed it to grow massively, become much more powerful, is that you were able to use new technology, architecture, engineering, and everything to design most of the country because only a small proportion of it was really settled. And that's not the way that it is in the old world. It just isn't. Africa is gaining massive economic potential for the same reason, because most of its boom, most of its development has occurred in the last 50, 60 years. Things are improving. It comes with some growing pains, like, oh, higher population density but no significant native medical infrastructure spawns pandemics. It could be a problem. This happened in the United States too. People don't even fucking realize it. There was a time before 50s era sanitation. Things were a little bit dicey for the average person in the U.S. You remember polio? Good thing that that's basically been wiped out in the world. But a Patriot Party that represents workers' rights, not in the socialistic sense, but in the sense of, hey, the workers benefit if government gets out of their fucking way most of the time, doesn't throw Americans under the bus to pay other countries just to tolerate us, but instead focuses on having diplomacy that stabilizes our allies and keeps them from needing a bunch of handouts. A national motto of our supremacy, insofar as the United States goes. The way that you practice that, the way that you have a true patriotic, strong civic society, is you look at yourself as superior, but you don't entangle yourself with others whenever possible. So you think, well, we have the greatest military, but use it sparingly. We have the greatest economy. Fair trade, free trade in the general sense. Don't take abuse from other countries. Smack them down if they try, and you can do that economically. You don't need to invade them. By and large, in every other conceptualization, free trade. That's expecting more of your government. Right now, most of the government is sleazeballs, and a bunch of lawyers and hack business people that repeatedly lie to people. They do all sorts of crazy shit, and as a society, we've become pathetic. We don't care anymore. A lot of people have either become demoralized or apolitical to the point where they don't even care if there's corruption. And not just a little corruption. It's not like, well, this dude got caught embezzling $1,000. Okay, well, make him pay restitution or something. No, we're talking people are embezzling fucking millions of dollars. They're starting wars on credit. They're doing crazy things that are ruining the underpinnings of not just the U.S., but Western civilization. And part of this is a struggle for something more than the United States. Because the United States is more than just a country. The United States is also an encapsulation of an idea that has spawned, in many ways, modern Western civilization, strengthened it, and held the bulwark against authoritarian communism and all sorts of other terrible ideologies from the old world. It's managed to hold that together as the hegemon for the last century. We're getting in hard times where we may no longer be able to guarantee that. Where we might have an international struggle to see, is the world going to go into a global community in which countries govern themselves, they look after their own people, they free trade, that war is limited because people are trying to get along? Or are we going to have international globalism, and we're going to have a one world order situation where 99% of the world are serfs? Yeah, it's great to be a 1%er, and if you're a 10%er, you can have a few toys. Other than that, you're fucked. You become a serf. Half of you will be replaced by robots, probably. I think that the United States is worth fighting for. The demoralization and blackpilling shit really needs to end, and a lot of it's coming from shills anyway. Or bots. Some of it probably is Chinese bots at this point. Of course, and Russian. They would like the U.S. to collapse as hegemon so they'd have more power. And it's not like the Cold War technically ended, it's just the USSR ended. I'm not even going to get into the Russia bullshit. Now, most of it, I'm sure, is not related to them. I think there are plenty of homegrown shills that really want to burn society to the ground. Guess what? They don't want to burn it to the ground because they want to build something better for you. They want to burn it to the ground so they can build something more productive, more lucrative for them. They want a bigger slice of the pie, and so they want to make other people miserable and lead them to their own demise. Just like wolves leading goddamn sheep. All these shit-ass little people with their black bloc and BLM signs and stuff, they're basically the same as espionage agents. They're just working for a different power. They're working solely for themselves instead of for a national collective on foreign shores. It's the only real difference. That's about all. Peace out.